Before we begin this discussion, I want to talk to the audience for a second. So we're not going to do this in a regular format where we'll have a discussion and then we'll open up for Q&A. This is going to be an open discussion where at periodic intervals, I will open the discussion to the audience. So if you have your questions, please get them ready, and I'm going to be back to you guys. So I want to start with both of you, Mevin and Sanjay, because, and this is, of course, this discussion is an extension of the movie that everybody's seen, which is Fashion Reimagined. And I'm actually going to go towards the end of the movie, and there's a very interesting statement there that was made, and I'm going to read it out. It says that in the last 4 or 5 years, the number of clothes described as sustainable have quadrupled, but fashion's impact is only getting worse. What do you guys have to say about this? While we do see, and I think we were discussing this backstage as well, where we do see that there are so many more sustainable brands in the last 3 or 4 years, the consumers are still not fully subscribing to sustainable fashion. I want to start with both your thoughts on that. Mevin, why don't you start?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you for having me on this panel. Super honored to be talking to both of you. So what I have to say about the movie, I'm going to read, as I said, it's Saturday, my brain is off. I have to say that I agree with it, whilst it's great news that sustainable brands are increasing around the world, but I'll have to put in this counter statistics to it, like we were discussing before, that the latest BOF fashion, global fashion report says that in the next 5 years, the global apparel consumption will increase by 63%. So while we are sitting here talking, LA is burning, and I think we have a long way to go, and this is more than a matter of urgency at the moment.
Sanjay, what are your thoughts on this?
Absolutely right. And all I want to ask, as you said, there is a assumption there is 60% growth in the apparel industry, but is it just limited to apparel industry? My question is, as I said, everything in a very relative. Is it like, are we going to less furniture? Are we going to needing less houses? Are we going to need everything less resources? It is for sure the resources are going to be limiting, and we are growing in numbers. As I said, it can really sustainable if you decide, okay, resources is, if there are 8 billion people and resources are good for 5 billion people, can you decide who you do not want on this planet, 3 billion? I think it's a very, very complex question that what is really sustainable, because what is sustainable is not affordable because we have limited resources. I did say back of the stage, if you have a, let's say, assume 100 acre of land, and 100 acre of land can, let's say, feed 1 million people, or it can feed it, or it can give a marigold natural color dye for, let's say, 100,000 clothing. What do you really choose? Do you really like to choose natural clothing dye, which is free and environment free, or you want them to feed wheat? So the question really arises that resources are so limiting. So we need to set our priorities, what I'm saying. I can go on, and also what is sustainable? What are we talking about? Sustainability, just a natural fiber material, or is just more than that? I just give you one small example, what is real sari is. Sari is 7 or 5.5 meters of fabric. Or is it a handloom piece of cloth, or is someone who's a wearer is a sari wearer, or it is the way it is done, the maker is a weaver or a printer, or the way of tying sari, or is it all of it? How do you select it? So it's like a bigger question again, what are we sustaining? It's an identity, there are certain motifs, or there are people who are a bigger and bigger community which cannot afford, let's say, Kanjivaram and Varanasi, but they still want to wear it, and there are people who are doing it by handloom, but that's not a natural fiber. So what are we? Again, my question is, what is a sustainable really means? It changes in every context and in every reason. We need to decide our own problem and our meaning of sustainability. And that's very particular and very peculiar to every single reason where we.
So essentially, like we were again talking, that fashion is a part of the larger ecosystem and the society, and so is sustainability. It's a way of life. But I still want to kind of narrow down this discussion. Fashion is a status symbol at the end of the day. I mean, we all know that, and the movie also kind of mentions a little bit about that. And while, sustainable has become cool, it also still appeals to a very select audience. I mean, today, how do you see, and Sanjay, I want to come to you with this first, how do you see fashion bridge that gap of sustainability between aspiration and a broader appeal? How do you see fashion becoming that catalyst and moving the needle a little at least?
Okay, it's kind of saying that we definitely have a less woke people in the world than not woke. I mean, I'm not saying they're woke, but I'm just saying let's assume that, okay? So it's kind of when you relate to that, we are more intelligent, because we are more intelligent than you, and when you relate that to whether it's sustainability or organic food, or anything related to that. When you think is your intelligence as a class thing, you don't get it, but I get it, then it's become a status symbol. It's just not what you wear. It's also with the food. Oh, you don't know what you're eating, this bread. I don't eat it. I don't take sugar. Do you know what is whatever the yellow sugar is, or sugarcane sugar is, or I don't take sugar, It's everywhere. And at the same time, okay, you don't know what's happening in LA, but definitely you do not know what's happening in your neighborhood where you live in Gurgaon. But it's kind of that you choose. I mean, when you relate, this whole intelligentsia, and what are the cool factors are, when you relate them to what social issues, and you are a more intelligent and woke person, then it's a status symbol in a way.
Mevin?
Yes, before I answer the question, I just wanted to make a connection with Sanjay's film, and the film where we see Amy going to Uruguay to see this beautiful happy sheep,
Yes.
from the UK. But Sanjay is already doing this, in Rajasthan, yeah? So this is something that I appreciate a lot seeing in India. People do go out there and meet the communities, etc., the Karigas and the sheep. So yes, fashion is indeed a status symbol, and the problem is that the whole fashion system is based on newness, new collections, new trends. We were talking about the color brown the other day. I'm not going to buy anything brown, that's for sure. I'm brown, that's good enough. But it's all about newness and repeat purchases, and this is a big problem. New seasons and even weekly drops. In the movie, she talks about 12 collections a year, which is ridiculous, tiring for designers, and also not that exciting for consumers because there's no real newness in 12 collections. So while I can say the problem is less with the luxury industry, because of course when consumers are paying a luxury price, they expect at least some ethical and sustainable practices. The problem is when the trend trickles down to the masses, where, something that was seen on the red carpet will be produced as a polyester version for affordability. I should probably put that slide on, let's see. Can we have my slide, please? Yep, there we go. So at the bottom right corner there's a little article that I wrote after a visit to Varanasi, and I saw all the streets fill up with shops and stalls of a lot of clothing. And I thought, this is all plastic. And then I thought, but people need to dress up. Everybody has a right to fashion. So how do they afford a more sustainable version of this? It's impossible. It's very expensive. This is probably preempting your next question. But I think bridging the gap, to answer your question, has to come from above, making sustainable cool, continuing to making sustainable cool, but at the same time, making it more accessible to the masses.
Before I proceed to my next question, do we have any questions from the audience, or should I move on with the discussion? Okay, I don't see any hands going up. Sorry. Yes, there's a lady right behind. Yeah, she stood up.
Hello. Yes. Hi, I have a question just inspired from the film I just saw. So this, I'm assuming 2018 collection, she was working around 2016 when, sustainability wasn't a thing. And I myself learned about sustainable fashion in around like 2019, 2020. And now I see, like mentioned by you in your first question, where everyone uses sustainability as a buzzword almost. It's become like a, you don't really know what's sustainable. And I feel like that's changed the perception towards sustainable fashion, where people sort of see it more as a buzzword and rather than, trying to understand what it's about. So what do you think is the future where we can change this perception and, sort of bring the focus back to what sustainability is about? Because it's not just, like organic, it's about welfare, it's about like child labor, there's so much more to it. It's about slowing down, it's about circular. So how do we change the perceptions back to, and bring the focus back to what matters?
Sanjay, do you want to take that?
A very loaded question. It's almost, if real answer would be that, if I kill the differences, meaning if everyone earns differently, I wish we could just have a system. There's a bank, whatever you earn, just give it to them and they divide equally. Honestly. I think what we world live in, it is a very complicated question, and I agree with that, like what is, and I think, let me cut it short and I think say that, I think if it's part of education, in our education in India, I hear that though it's a part of everyday life. I've seen it because I did not grow up in a city, so I've seen things very differently. How is it made, who is consuming, from wood fire to everything, like every single toy, every festival, everything is just made home, or there was not even you can buy a bread or buy makhan or paneer, everything. So you see it very differently. But other than that, I think, sorry.
I think what you're trying to say is it really starts from the foundational level. It starts with education.
Yeah,
and
so if we have in a primary education,
Right.
if what is really sustainable means would be really wonderful. I think it's still not part of our education system.
Right,
What,
and what you're suggesting is it really needs to become a part of the curriculum right from day one, that people start thinking like that again. Mevin, I will open that question to you, and I know it was something later that I wanted to ask you, but since Sanjay has mentioned this, you are a dean of a very reputed fashion school. How does sustainable fashion education, what role does it play at Istituto Marangoni? What are the measures that are taken? You can take a moment for that.
Yes, of course. Going back to your question, just one point. Yes, the word sustainable fashion has been violated, and nowadays they are using responsible fashion, which covers three areas, the three Ps, which is people, social responsibility, planet, of course, and profits also. So being responsible in terms of business practices. So as a school, we are starting, can I have my slide again, please? Sorry. The good news is that our students come to us already woke. So they are questioning things, they are already aware, they are already very alert, they will call out bad practices, they come in with a determination that they will create circular, sustainable collections from term one, which is amazing. So just showing a little bit of what we're doing with students. Sorry. Heavy slides, that's the heavy slide. So from term one, we are introducing them to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We are making them become the activists in the school. So they have a little group where they go to new students and they talk about it and they start having conversations about the Sustainable Development Goals. In terms of the curriculum, from all our courses are revised every year, every term even. We do a lot of research, including the Mumbai school. This is a group, a research that I received from the London school last week, which I found very interesting. It's called the Radically Local Research Group. And one of our tutors, who's also a designer researcher, she's researching dyes made from the willow tree, beautiful tree, willow tree waste. And she came up with that color palette, which I thought I should share today because it's so beautiful. And we are also doing a lot of activities at an educational level globally. We have soon in Dubai this year, we are doing a sustainable creative arts conference, inviting, if there's any faculty in the room, I'd invite you to also participate in this discussion. We are encouraging students to swap clothes. I think there was a question about this. They've created this little activity where they called it Swapapalooza. Very cool. So they are coming up and swapping clothes that they can reuse in their new collections or even wear. So a lot of discussion within academics, informing the students and answering the question from before. It is about talking about it and informing and educating not just our students, but the
community in general.
Everybody, yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned the word resale and reuse because that is going to be my... Sorry, Sanjay.
Yeah, I would just wanted to add that, I understand that there is a new word, but how are the brands are producing? In 2025, it's still interesting that people produce collection or they drop things as like a CSR activity. It's just one of the collection of 5% what they produce of I don't want to name big brands, and that's how it is done. I think it's 225 is still thinking that we're calling it ethical. Don't you think everything need to be ethical
it's
today?
Not the new normal in any way.
Yeah. I mean, you cannot be unethical. What does it really mean? It's ethical.
That's the most basic thing any fashion brand should now be.
Or as a human value, it's like you are a nice person. Not everyone's supposed to be a nice person. So it's saying like that. So I think it's still a gimmick, and I would like to say that when he was saying, and you were suggesting swap and resell, is it possible that these brands can reswap between them? And that'll be very interesting.
Sanjay, you should answer. I will not answer that question for sure.
That'll be very interesting. That's what I'm saying. So these are still, I think, a gimmick to sell things, so to drop new words. And because these may be popular in 1 or 2 cities again in India, I think we need to pick up our own battle. Do you believe that is going to happen in Kanpur or Nagpur or Nasik? And if it doesn't happen, do you think this sustainability discussion will make any more sense? So, that's what I'm saying. You are in Mumbai and Delhi. First, you are these South Delhi and the next South Mumbai. And then in that, then how many work people, among work people, how many are interested today and how many going to practice that? And it's too less and too little. And as I said, there are bigger questions. I think we need to have to resolve our own answers to things, to own problems.
Absolutely, but I will still ask you this question that, and Amy also said it in her movie, right, that resale is a huge way to kind of talk about the sustainable fashion movement. And while, of course, resale and reuse is coming around in India, it is still not viewed as cool. I mean, you still will not have people go and say, I'm going to a second store and buying this. It's still looked at it with a lens of a judgment. How can we change that? Because I think when all of us grew up, and I pretty much say it for everybody in the room, we were using clothes, right? Cousins were handing down, mothers were reusing the saris. It was a part of our society. Suddenly there's a judgmental view. What do you have to say about that?
I just want to say, again, it is a very classic, as a class issue. If you have seen I've seen as a kid in Delhi Old Market or Mumbai Old Market, India is the biggest dump where they produce the used clothing. I don't know what you call it, Europe and America, they dump their clothing. And I know one designer in my office, he goes and he calls, it's a Kabutar market in Delhi, and he picks up all the known brands, like 150, 100, 250. I think that was done, it was there, but I think it wasn't cool enough to be so-called among the woke people. I think the woke people are waking up to know that it's cool to do this and it's trendy. I think let's separate that. It was very different. It was practiced in villages, it's practiced in India. But as I said, woke is not India, India is not woke. So I think for them, it's a new cool word, and when it's become fashionable and they want to show off, and also, it's interesting, what do you like to see? What are your discussion? You choose how you want to be seen. Earlier you wore it, but you did not ever say that it was borrowed. Now it's become a cool thing to say that. Maybe the same kid, they do not know how to eat with fork, but they never announce it, oh my God, I feel so difficult to eat with fork. But how will they say, oh my God, I don't know how to wear a sari. It's so complicated. I just don't know it. Every girl, you say 10 girl, but they 8 like to announce it that I don't know how to wear a sari.
They think that's cool.
I think that's cool. It's like, I'm not a sari wearer, but I'm thinking about it. So I'm not a sari person. It's like a thing of A's in class. So these, every very small thing, what are you singing, what are you listening, what are your problems? In fact, a problem and solution also thinking of the West, as I said. I think every need to think of very localized problems, localized solution.
That's amazing. Yes.
So I think it was Ali Abad who rewore a sari. I think this is where the solution could be for India. But answering your question in terms of rewearing, so yes, in India and many other countries, I understood, it is a bit of an issue. So swapping within the family is fine. But there is a hygiene and spiritual issue, I suppose. Huh? So
Yes,
I
we are
just
a
want to
complex
say
culture.
that currently garments can be deep cleaned to a level that you can't imagine. You can even kill further bacteria, I suppose. And for the spiritual aspect, I think we can find pandits who can cleanse and bless this garment for you to wear again with no problems at all. So no issues. I think it's good karma to save the planet, no?
I see Samtas clapping the loudest, and I know why. No, but again, resale is one bit. The other bit is, and again, I know a lot of people in this room will agree with me, while there are so many of us who want to subscribe to sustainable fashion choices, it's not affordable for everybody. Today, if a 23, 24-year-old girl or a woman goes out, it's not. Like even mother of pearl, if I have to talk about Indian currency, her regular dress is for 40,000 rupees. Now, this is something which a young person cannot afford. So again, I want to ask both of you, the fact that sustainable fashion is expensive, it automatically alienates an audience. What do you have to say about that?
As I said earlier, there are limited resources, and I tell you how. I give another example for it. So it happened all the time when you know we was in Chanderi, we have in Varanasi and Orissa. Orissa was to me almost like a craft capital of India, textile capital. There are so many famous weaving traditions have come up. And at the same time, there is सबसे ज़्यादा जो weaver they are going or leaving the weaving traditions is Andhra Pradesh. And what is the reason? Because they're all going to in computer education. They're educated. They want to become a computer engineer. So I'm asking you. I am a work person and I want to wear something sustainable, but I ask someone else to not to become a computer engineer, and I say you become a weaver and you produce things not expensive so I can afford and I can wear sustainable clothing. So again, as long as again comes, it's very difficult what I'm saying. So see, because again, they can weave for you and you are the people who do not ever weave. Unless until you're weaving your own, this problem won't solve. There's no answer to this, and I'm telling you today, as Gandhi said it. But it does not look that it's practical, but it's not practical, that everyone can afford sustainable clothing. So if the new age kid, they also need to be doctor or engineer, right? They want to be, they have to, you cannot tell them just to weave, right? Yeah. Just because you like culture and sustainability. So it's a very complicated question. As I said, unless until you start weaving, again, it's a class thing because there's no colleges, there's the people who have so many NGOs about revival, survival, and so many development groups. You can just count on many textile brands and people. I really want to know how many of their kids are actually weaving. They all want to make policy making, or they want to be...
They all want to move into different careers and do other things and not continue what the family has been doing probably. Sure. Mevin?
Absolutely agree with you, Sanjay. If I can have my slide again. So we went as a school, two of the schools, London and Mumbai. We went to Orissa, Kotpad, as I was mentioning before. And yes, so we met the last generation of weavers and dyers of that family. Can I have my slide, please? There we go. So they are there, the little group community there, all the villagers and weavers. So we were actually very sad that the new generation, the sons, actually is working in IT, the daughters are working in stores, they've stopped. So we went there and we tried to understand how they work. We've worked with Creative Bee, Bina Rao, who's huge in Hyderabad and doing a lot of sustainable research. And we encouraged our students to understand this community, understand the process. We've created a little coffee table book there because Bina wanted to document the whole process that we launched. And then our students in Mumbai and in London have reused it in collections. Like you can see, this was in the London school, and she actually won the Designer of the Year. Indian students studying in London using that Kotpad fabric in new innovative ways. But this is not enough, of course. We have helped them to kind of go on Instagram, take photos of their products, how to sell it. We've done the branding. So it's a whole 360-degree approach of trying to help them sell stock that they have, trying to show them what else can be done and show the industry what else can be done with these fabrics, and in an effort to preserve. And the kids actually told us that they used the word parampara, so they wanted to preserve this, but there's no future, as they said. That's why they went into shops and computers, etc. And pricing is the other ethical consideration. As I said before, there's people, planet, and profits. So if businesses are not willing to pay more and reduce their profit margins and value these craftsmen and artisans more, it's not going to change anything.
Any questions from the audience? We've got a couple of, we'll start with, no, Supraja. Supraja and both you, so I think we'll get somebody.
She's not seen. I'm Supraja. Thank you for this wonderful session. My question to you is open to all, but mostly to Sanjay, because I love his sense of humor and he answers things. Sanjay, India has this thing about aping a lot what happens in West, and we just copy-paste it irrespective of... I always say that we copy a solution to a problem that doesn't exist here. But on that note, there is vintage and pre-loved and all that's happening very popularly in the West, and especially in Europe. And people are very proud. People of a decent class also go by vintage. Do you think you see that coming here, and especially in Delhi?
Absolutely, yes. Delhi and Mumbai. As I said, India, there are two India, many India, first of all. These two cities are very cosmic connection to the Western world, Delhi and Mumbai. So I think they are okay to be cool. Rest of India, I don't know. These definitely getting them some energy and coming their West, like we just, how do I say? It's like they becoming a mother goddess Ganga. अब सब साफ हो जाएगा दोनों लोगों से, दो सिटी में हो रहा है, हाँ, but cool हो रहा है अभी.
But do you see that, just extending from what Supraja asked, do you see that eventually extending to the other cities as well, and that becoming a sort of a norm?
As of now, very, very, very small. But I did say, why don't we find out which is already there? I've seen from childhood in CP and Mumbai, everywhere there were things were sold. Yeah. There's already there, but exactly what our discussion is, we Indian and them Indian actually. So I think India had it, but we don't have data on them. We have been a dumping ground for last 40, 50 years. Where is it going? Someone is making dari, someone is wearing, is already there. We are only talking 0.00001% people in the room. So yes, if we talk about them, yes, I think they're cool together.
Samta.
So yeah, I'm really itching to say something, but I don't want to take away somebody else's chance. So very quickly, I just want to say that I agree 100% with everything. The entire take that Sanjay has had on this discussion, I completely agree with you. But I do really believe that when we talk about sustainability and the kind of greenwashing that's happening on its name across different industries, it's not confined to fashion at all. I think anything sustainable, given the fact that Sanjay explains why sustainability is expensive because of that lack of resources in proportion
I didn't even add design. I was thinking about it. I had missed that. Yeah. Imagine design education is no parents want to send their kids to design. And he's talking about design. When the designer comes to me and they say, hey, their siblings are making that much money because they work in finance. Yeah. And when I have a 12 designer under me, and people and aunties and mothers and friends and the coolest kids, or my friends, they take a pride, oh, मैंने ले भी लिया same design और सस्ते मिला copy लिया, देखो कितना smart है. Yeah. They don't understand. Some of their kids, not me, are also studying design. How much you willing to pay for design, that IP, that does not even exist. No. Again, sustainability, that too, where is the whole design? That's why why you are never going to be leader because you're going to aping them. You don't want to have it. It's very loaded, complex question.
Yeah.
Sustainability is just not natural fiber,
Yeah.
for God's sake.
Everything. But what I want to say is that I think, given the fact that all this discourse around sustainability, the climate crisis, the urgency to do with pollution and everything is a top-down discourse. But the pressure to address these issues, we expect bottoms up. I think anything sustainable should be expensive, so that people who have caused these problems, who had the agency and the resources to, in the first place, cause the problems, actually pay for it. You cannot expect people in Banaras to not wear those plastic-made clothes. Who is providing that to them? Who's creating those aspirations, right? So I feel like eating quinoa should be more expensive than eating wheat. Wearing slow fashion should be more expensive than wearing that, and the pressure should not go down to people right at the bottom. Sorry, that's all I wanted to say.
Samta, could you pass the mic to the person?
Who's that?
No, I mean, I was also going to ask about whether it should be a top-down or bottom-up perspective to like look at fashion. But my second question was, India has a really rich history of textile. Like, it's one of the oldest that we've seen, and what, as you mentioned, that it is dying out. People want to go into IT, go into finance. Where do you think the consumer comes in, and where do you think actual legislation and policy comes in to actually keep these crafts alive and actually keep this history that we've created alive for the future generations to see? And do you think it comes from the consumer's perspective, where consumers openly go and purchase these goods? Or do you think it's coming from a legislation perspective, where it actually becomes viable for people to continue these traditions and be in the family business and traditions? So where do you think that line is drawn?
Well, the answer to this is, as you know in India, how much you depend on the government for things. I'm asking you, education, road, electricity, or good life, like we don't even have air in Delhi. How much you depend on that? We try to manage everything on. So please, I don't know. I don't want to answer that. Fashion again, don't see any separation is as much as you expect the government to be. So legislation, the government, everything, they're spending, I'm sure, more than ever. So I don't want to have a question, where is this money gone? Where is it going to go? Whether it's this government, that government, we're not pointing out this political, that, but you know there's a pattern between all the political party, all the government bureaucracy. So let's not even touch that. Second question is that I think education and awareness, I would say. As you look back, okay, let me give you a small example. When I just started, I see the bride wearing orchid. People took pride, you know, my orchid flower for the wedding came from Europe. I was like, really? You have to see how it's going to come. There is certain chemical plastic thing into it.
There's a whole supply chain.
Again, then you kind of, there was a whole discussion around flower. You think about it, we have the most exotic flower, have amazing fragrance. You don't need so much of, you know, a carbon print and there's available. They're there and you can wear them. It's kind of that. I think the more we're going to explore backward, we know, and that's how you're going to help the world. You cannot have the world because you have their solution to their problems. I think we need to come up with our own solution. I don't think the world is looking for them to help. I think world is saying you're too many, can you just handle your own? My answer is that. Can you just take care of your own? Because we are too many people right now, right? I don't think the world is looking for that.
No,
they will take care of them. And don't worry about the world. I think, can we worry about our country, our city, a specific problem? All I'm trying to say, can we just take care of ourselves?
Mevin, do you want to add any thoughts to any of this before I take the last question?
I think just maybe quickly, again, the Business of Fashion report is showing currently that despite the legislation, businesses, executives this year have decided to pull back unsustainable efforts, which is crazy. You know, so is legal and policies going to actually change things? They will put profits first, and that's what they are doing.
You know, I'll just add, as a graduate in law, I can tell you law here and in the West works very differently. So I think the policies here are a long way. Fashion law doesn't even exist here. It just exists in the books. I think the whole thing has to first come in implementation before anything else happens, and that's, I think, a long way to go. And I think before Samta tells me, Kamna, you're going in a different direction, I'm going to take a last question here. Okay, we've got two women. If you both make it quick, I'll give it to both of you.
Thank you for your very candid talk, and thank you for your feedback as well, Samta. My question was, what are some big moonshot ideas that students in design who are coming woke to study are talking about? And also, as a global fashion designer, what are some really big ideas that, you're thinking of, which may not be executable maybe in the next 10 years, but maybe 30 years? If you could talk about those a little bit.
Mevin, do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So our students come from all regions of India, which I find super amazing. And then they all come with their own background, local heritage of craft and textile, etc. So just an example, I had a student who came in and decided to do his collection completely with denim scraps he collected all over India, I suppose. So he did the show here in Mumbai, then he went to finish in Paris, and he opened the show in Paris with collection based on that same principle. So students like this are the ones who are setting the tone for the other students also in the classroom, for the tutors, but also making a mark on the global scene. And I think this is really because they come from India and they have had, of course, this culture and heritage of no wastage and reusing and, the beauty of and poetry of making a sari into a pillow cover or something, or new things.
And the last question.
Hi, my name is Sabita. I have a question around thrifting and apparel renting. As visionary designers, how are we inbuilding this thought towards sustainability with students and all upcoming generations? What are your thoughts on these as fashion visionaries?
I can only vision mine. I mean, student to me is, the student who come to work with us. Are you talking about them?
Yes.
As I have answered a few times what thrifting means, I think it already exists. And the real sustainable where the size matters, the pattern, and the sari. I'm not just saying that everyone has to wear a sari, but if you really care, then it has no sizing. It just fits in.
Everyone's wearing raw mango sari. I don't think a lot of us are going to mind.
No, what I'm saying is it does not have. I think okay, let me put it so we as a brand, we have collection from 2014 still selling. If we can kill a trend, if we can make them not about trend and that moment, the garments which can be worn for the age of wearing it
It's
in
not
terms of trend,
trend-based,
it's trend-based.
evergreen.
That will be amazing. And second would be the miser. I think the real thing lies is, we call it like Gandhi thought of conjusi. As much you can be conjuice, that's the only solution to it. Not the government, no education, nothing. Jitna aap kam kharid sakte hain, wo hi ek solution hai. Please, to hold for everything. Like, it has answer to everything. The less you spend, the less you buy, less is more in every which way. As I said, if you only buy cotton, but you're buying a lot of clothing, that it doesn't help is not sustainable. But if you buy a one synthetic and you're going to use for 20 years, that's more sustainable. So please apply your brain, and I think be mindful of what you're doing. Don't get into the gimmick of this, what is sustainable. Only natural fiber is not sustainable. And what is West is teaching us definitely is not. Think of our problem and think of our own solutions.
Mevin, any parting notes before I wrap up the discussion?
No, I think just one thing that Amy said in the movie about the stupidity and illusion of consumerism and happiness, along the same lines of what Sanjay is saying, reselling, there's no season, there's no trends. You can, this last 4 years ago, it can still be in the stores. Buying less, buying better, finding pieces that you really, really love, that are timeless, that you can reuse, and that fits your identity rather than, wearing the latest collection top to bottom. And it's really, I feel, cooler and makes a stronger statement and is activism in its own. And I think what Amy said again in the movie, nature defending itself is nature, and because corporations will not. So that bottom-up aspect also needs to be there, but also top-down.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And on that lovely note, I'm going to say a thank you. Thank you, Mevin. Thank you, Sanjay. And thank you to the wonderful audience for taking the time out and being a part of this. And thank you, Samta, for putting this together. And congratulations on the amazing festival that you've curated. Thank you, everyone.